For today's cup of coffee, we're going to be discussing something else seasonal. And, we discussed the Magi on the previous cup. If you didn't catch that one, go ahead and... There's lots of them that you can catch up on over the holidays. Mm-hmm. Because extra coffee and grog for all crew members during the holiday season.
Yes.
Especially dark roast. Now, if you're one of these that prefers a blonde roast, God help you. We'll pray for you. Let us know. But tonight, appropriately, we're going to be discussing the Star of Bethlehem. Uh-huh. And what was it? We hear these things, but a lot of times we hear the words, but we have no understanding of what is behind them. Mm-hmm. So... This comes from space.com and was by Jonathan O'Callaghan, and it was originally published in All About Space magazine, December the 21st, 2020. Okay. And of course, all the links will be in the description box, unless I totally spaz, which can happen. So Mr. O'Callaghan writes, as the well-known story in the Gospel of Matthew goes, 3 magi, or wise men, we've already we've disproven that, followed the Star of Bethlehem to Jerusalem some 2,000 years ago. What was the Star of Bethlehem? Mm-hmm. This is a question scholars have long pondered, not just from a religious or historical perspective, but from a scientific one too. Now remember, this is scientists trying to explain this stuff.
Right.
What happens when scientists try to explain the spiritual?
They completely discount the spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a separation. They don't quite get that. So keep that in mind as I read this. Plenty of theories have been proposed, from an astronomical event to an astrological horoscope, but thanks to modern astronomy, scientists are getting closer to an answer. I wonder if his fingers or his head or whatever smoked or smoldered just a little bit when he had to type in astrological event.
It set ablaze just ever so slightly.
Right. Because we know how the astronomers view the astrologers. Uh-huh. The astrologers don't have a problem with the astronomers.
No, it's always the other way around for some reason. Maybe it's because the astrology people actually know what the fuck this shit means.
Well, this has always been the thing. Astronomers go, oh, look, there's an object. Mm-hmm. And the astrologers go, oh, look, there's an object. This is what it is, and this is what it means.
And this is what it does.
Right. Now, we're not talking about these cheesy-ass people that call themselves astrologers, like in your daily, your newspaper horoscopes. That is bullshit.
People like David Palmer and
Absolutely. And I do mention him in here. So... It says, if what is in the New Testament now is, if scientists, God help them, if what is in the New Testament is a historical account of something, then that historical account requires an explanation, said David Weintraub, a professor of physics and astronomy at Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. And he had emailed these people. Nobody needs to know that. As an astronomer, you want an astronomical explanation. Okay, right there means that he's not going to take anything else into consideration. Mm. Because to the person that only has a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
All right.
It says, we know that Halley's Comet was visible in the sky in 11 BC. However, as the Magi trekked towards Jerusalem and on to Bethlehem, it seems unlikely that they followed a comet because its position would have changed as the Earth rotated. So the comet would not have led them in a single direction. What's more, in the account, in the ancient world, comets are often regarded as bad omens. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're regarded as bad omens today.
Yeah, pretty much.
And Grant Matthews, a professor of theoretical astrophysics and cosmology at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana, told All About Space, quote, "For Christmas cards, it makes a nice picture having a comet and a tail, but in those days, comets up in the sky were usually a harbinger of impending disaster," end quote. We can also rule out novas and supernovas. Either event would have resulted in a detectable remnant, but astronomers have not found anything that might date back to this time. Furthermore, had the Magi followed one, they probably would have walked in a circle. And Winthrop said, quote, "You can't follow a star from Baghdad to Jerusalem to Bethlehem. Stars don't do that. They rise and set, and they don't sit in the sky," end quote. Such an event would surely have been seen by others at the time, too. Although novas are reportedly quite rare, you'd still expect to find other historical accounts of a large, bright event in the sky. Other theories suggest a supernova in the Andromeda Galaxy is the cause, as described in a 2005 study published in the journal The Observatory. Although it's possible to see the galaxy with an unaided eye, it wouldn't have been possible to see a star going supernova and exploding within it. Even with the help of a telescope, the star could have been, an entire sky of stars. So there's no way with the naked eye that they would have noticed anything other than just stars, because stars appear to twinkle because there's a lot of shit that goes on between your eye and the actual star.
Yeah.
So it says this leads us to one of two possibilities. The first is that the Magi were making an astrological interpretation of the sky. The fact that they needed to ask Herod for directions when they arrived suggests that they were not being led to their final destination by a single bright object. Astrology was widely used at the time, and with the Magi coming from Babylon, it's plausible that they were astrologers. And due to a particular alignment of planets and stars, they may have read a hidden meaning among the stars, leading them to King Herod. For example, Jupiter's display could have been of great significance here. And astrology associated with the planet Jupiter is one of royalty. So the moon passing it in the constellation of Aries on April the 17th, 6 BC, could have heralded the birth of Christ. If he had listened to our cup of coffee yesterday about the Magi, he would have had a more thorough understanding. I caught him off guard with that one.
Yeah, maybe.
And
I don't know. I think this article came out like a while before we did the video.
Yeah, a little bit. Like
Just
a year.
A little bit. Yeah, that's a little bit.
I think we were still doing I was doing shrubberies.
Yes.
And stuff. And it's okay. That's okay. I like the direction our channel has taken. Winthrop further stated, quote, "Modern astronomers don't put any credence in astrology," emphasis mine. But modern is important in this context. What's important is what people thought 2,000 years ago. Astrology was a big deal back then. The explanation I have found that makes the most sense is that it was astrological, end quote.
Okay.
Like I said, I bet he felt like his head was going to explode.
You can hear those gears struggling.
Oh, yeah. And it says the other more astronomical explanation is that there was indeed a bright object in the sky, a conjunction between planets and stars.
It's a great conjunction coming up.
Exactly. A conjunction occurs when two or more celestial bodies appear to meet in the night sky from our location on Earth. These events can continue every night in a similar location for days or weeks. If the wise men were to follow the moment of conjunction, it's possible that they would have been led to a specific direction. Astronomer Michael Molnar suggested that a conjunction theory might be correct in his book, The Star of Bethlehem. If the star was the result of a conjunction, and this historical event really did happen, because they can't possibly think that Jesus was actually a thing. They don't want to admit that.
They don't want to admit that.
Then there are a number of different alignments that could be the culprit. Perhaps the most promising and the one favored by Matthews is an alignment of Jupiter, Saturn, the Moon, and the Sun in the constellation of Aries on April the 17th, 6 BC. This conjunction fits with the story for a few reasons. First, this conjunction happening in the early morning hours, which aligns with the Gospel's description of the Star of Bethlehem as a rising morning star. The Magi also lost sight of the star before seeing it come to rest in the place where the baby Jesus lay in the stable. This could have been the result of the retrograde motion of Jupiter, which means that it appears to change direction in the night sky as Earth's orbit overtakes it. And Matthews states, normally planets have move eastward if you're following them in the sky. But when they go through retrograde motion, they turn around and go in the direction that the stars rise and set at night, westward, end quote. Two other conjunctions around a similar time also look promising. One is the meeting of Jupiter, Venus, and the star Regulus in the constellation of Leo on June 17th, 2 BC. Without the aid of a telescope, the two planets would appear as a single star, brighter than Venus and Jupiter individually. Another conjunction occurred in 6 BC between Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars in the constellation of Pisces, but neither of these latter two conjunctions match the description in the New Testament as closely as the conjunction that occurred on April the 17th, 6 BC. And although scientists have ruled out several possibilities, we may never know for sure what the Star of Bethlehem was, or even if it really happened, barring some remarkable archaeological finding. But it's a question that comes up year after year, and it will continue to pique the interest of scientists and historians alike for many years to come. Matthew states, quote, "Nothing in science is ever closed, nor is it in history. We may never know if the Star of Bethlehem was a conjunction, astrological event, or fable to advance Christianity. Maybe it was simply a miracle," end quote. Okay. Now, within what we have studied, they have made a lot of mistakes.
Just a little bit.
Tremendous amount of mistakes. First of all, they're not taking into account the actual span of continent that the Magi had to travel, which could have been 800 to 900 miles.
Mm-hmm.
That they did not arrive at the moment of birth. That Jesus could have been up to 2 years old.
It's the 900 some miles.
Right. And it's like, especially on camel.
They didn't have cars back then.
Can you imagine riding a camel for 800 to 900 miles?
I would have killed that camel.
I mean, that was it. That was the Rolls Royce of the day.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That makes me uncomfortable. That makes me squiggle thinking about it.
I mean, today it's easy to travel the 900 and some miles because we got cars and planes and such. But back then, they had animals and buggies.
I don't know that they had chariots and stuff like that. I'm sure they had carts.
That's a buggy.
Yeah, close enough. No conjunction lasts that long.
Mm-mm.
There is no known, or at least in my knowledge, there is no event like that astronomy like that would have lasted up to 2 years.
Yeah.
Even as far as astrology, which makes more sense that it could have been this conjunction going into that conjunction and that they would have known all that. But nothing stays static in the sky at any time.
Yeah. See, I know that much.
Yeah.
I don't delve into astrology studies and such, so I don't know what shit is shit.
But anyhow, these guys, all their science, they don't know shit about shit on this.
Neither do I.
That's okay. But yes, you do. You know more than they do.
But I understand that you don't discredit some of the shit. You don't poo-poo on it.
Right. If you don't know, keep an open mind.
You learn on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because how are you going to, like you said, how are you going to learn if you keep a closed mind on something?
Well, if you already know it all, then what are you going to do?
Exactly. Nobody likes to know it all.
Absolutely. And if these people are that evolved, they need to go ahead and ascend and leave the rest of schlepping along. Right. Schlepping along. And also, there was a great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn that occurred last winter solstice that they called a Christmas star.
It's their great conjunction, Charlie Brown.
Really? And then we have, this was also from space.com, and this was an article, I took some snippets from it by Doris, Elin,
Doris Day.
Urrutia, published December 11th, of course, 2020.
Yeah, Doris Day commented on this shit.
And Doris had written Jupiter and Saturn had their closest encounter in almost 400 years on the solstice, which was December the 21st, 2020.
Wow.
And the solstice converged with a great conjunction that some have christened as an early Christmas star because of its occurrence near the holiday. And when the two planets converged, that was the closest they had been to one another since 1623, according to Joe Rao, instructor at the Hayden Planetarium in New York.
How did they get that number? How did they know how long it took?
They have ways. Now, that is one of the things about the astronomers. They can track, where these planets were. It's not... They do have science to do that.
Okay.
But that conjunction wasn't visible to sky watchers on much of the Earth because of its location in the night sky. The last time the event was visible from most of the Earth was in 1226, and that was according to Virginia Tech astronomer Nahum Arev. So that was last solstice.
Okay.
But before any of that, in 2017, the Leo King that I refer to quite often, David Palmer, it was called Age of Deception, and it was a movie. And I will tell you that Leo King is...
He dumb, but he's smart.
Yeah, I didn't want to put it that way, but he is a brilliant astrologer.
He is. He's
some
really
of the other things, but now you have to listen between the words sometimes with him. He was also a male model.
And we all know they ain't got much brain.
Well, it's just, he's another one you have to...
But he's really good at the astrology.
Listen to with an open mind. And he has been, for years now, going back in history and finding out, when these other conjunctions occurred. Because within that, events are cyclical. It's not, this happened and it'll never happen again.
Like PC culture.
Because in Greek thought, things are linear. This happened, so therefore it will never happen again. In other parts of the world and other belief systems and knowledge systems, if you want to call it that, for lack of a better word, it's not. It is cyclical. Even
much like PC culture.
Oh, God. Anyhow.
Guess what? Y'all's time is coming up soon.
Well,
Because of Generation Alpha. They will rebel.
Right. But, even King Solomon, if you want to go from a scriptural standpoint, he said there is nothing new under the sun. And within Hebrew thought, it was a matter of cycles. Yeah.
Now, I wonder if he means okay, nothing is new under the sun. So does that mean people have had our tech before? Like thousands and thousands thousands and thousands of years ago?
Absolutely. There is a theory with that. We don't know how many times that civilization has been
rebooted.
And then was rebooted is exactly right. And this may be our time. But that's also for another cup.
Yeah.
That would be called the gap theory from a biblical standpoint.
I wonder how far it goes out, though.
We don't know. You've got the people that are They take everything literally. They act like there is no allegory in Scripture, which is not so. And as far as actual 7 days, that was allegory. Because, and then that's where you get that rift between the scientists and people that have spiritual beliefs. And it's like, if both side is convinced that theirs is the only way, then nobody's going to be listening. You know, right. There's no point in it. Conversation, it's a matter of one person speaks, the other person is supposed to listen, think of what they're going to say, then the other person shuts up as the other person responds. Right. That is a skill that people have forgotten. A lot of people have forgotten that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of people don't know when to shut up.
If you have to scream over top of somebody, you have nothing to say. And if you are that emotional...
Well, unless you were speaking and then, like, they start talking over top of you, so you raise your voice because you weren't done talking and you want to make sure, like, hey, you're not supposed to be talking right now because I'm not done yet.
But you know what? You never win that.
That's true.
The best thing to do if someone is doing that, you can recognize they weren't listening to begin with. And so the best thing to do is stop talking, because they don't want to hear what you have to say. They just want to hear themselves and what they have to say.
Unless you're in the mood to fight. If you're in the mood to fight, go ahead and raise your voice.
But, you know, this is supposed to...
If they have pissed you off enough that you want to fight them as far as verbally, go right ahead.
This is supposed to be a season of peace and joy and forgiveness and celebration, regardless of your belief system. Mm-hmm. And, you know, take that, run with that, apply that. And, you know, for them to sit there, these scientists who, you know, they have no idea what they're talking about, that it had to be either A or B. Well, what if it was something further down the line? What if it was Z that they don't even know exists?
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much. You got it.
Not everything is black and white.
No. If anything, it's kind of like what is it called?
It's all varying shades of gray.
Yeah. It's all that gray level scale, whatever.
Sure. So.
In technicality, black is just gray. It's just the ultimate gray.
Black actually is not a color. It is the absence of color.
And white is not a color either. It's just the absorbance of all the colors.
It is a collection of all colors. So, anyhow, interesting. The Star of Bethlehem. And it's like, I hope that no one thinks that I'm trying to take the magic out of this season by explaining these things. I'm not. I think it's a matter of adding to the magic of this season. You know. And that's like, we did not go into certain subject matter. I mean, this channel is not for kids, period.
It's not for kids at all.
But as far as some things that families, you know, with the legends and the myth and stuff like that, there's no way that I would go there with the possibility of a child overhearing and taking that wonderment and that awe from this season from that child. Mm-hmm. So... And even as far as those who believe that the wonderment of the season is about another child, and that we know that this is not the actual birth date, that doesn't take away from the wonderment that that child was born.
Yeah.
So the when doesn't necessarily matter. That's secondary. That's splitting hairs on a lot of stuff. It is a matter of, for those of us who believe that he was and that he is and will always be.
Yeah.
So, anyhow.
I need a drink.
I know that you need a drink. It's like I've already had an allergy attack and everything else, but it's all good.
Cats are throwing fits in the kitchen.
It's all good. They let them throw fits. They throw fits whether they're there, here, anywhere. So that's it.
The screaming boy.
So if you've had experiences with paranormal, supernatural encounters, UFOs, aliens, cryptids, if you've seen interesting stars, astrological and or astronomy wonders. If you've got local, regional family myths, legends, if you've got seasonal stories that you would like to share, if you just need somebody this season to tell you that they give a damn that you're on the planet, because we actually do.
Yeah.
Then send us an email, cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. And this one will come out Christmas Eve.
It will.
So that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. And then we'll have one to come out on the Christmas day.
We have one comes out every day.
Yeah.
Every day. We do this because...
No breaks.
This is what form of art that I have at this point in life. Mm-hmm. So I'm sharing that.
I'm waiting for you to upload your new picture thing.
Huh? Okay.
The one that I made you.
Oh! The thumbnail.
Yeah.
The channel logo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
I was like, tell me you did not forget about that already.
No. And what I might do, I don't know if I can have that as a separate, like a watermark or something. The only thing that concerns me, and we'll have to figure this out, is when it's reduced down, I don't want it to lose, the rendering on it.
I mean, you're going to lose some of it no matter what, but guess what? It doesn't matter because you can't zoom in onto the picture anyway.
But guess what? At some point we could go on Redbubble and have those on cups.
Well, you will still have the original picture, which means it won't do anything to it.
I understand. But anyhow, here we ended and we going into a discussion about, the arts. Mm-hmm. So we'll do that. We will have a revealing of that at some point.
Yes.
So, but you all have a beautiful, blessed day. Mm-hmm. Know that you're loved, and we will see you on the next cup.
Yes, don't forget to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe and hit that little notification button. Doesn't matter what website you're on this time. The little bell, fuck you, little bell. Whatever. Bye.
Bye.